Hello YouTube, I have a Polestar 3 here with a bad DC contactor. To replace the DC contactor you have to remove the battery. I'm going to show you how to remove the battery and replace the DC contactor. We're going to remove all these covers and the luggage compartment. After removing the covers, I want you to take this 1, 2, 3, 4 8mm bolts out. After removing the covers in the luggage compartment, I now want you to lift the vehicle. To put the vehicle on the lift, we're going to have to remove the battery, and usually to lift the vehicle up, we lift it by the battery. So we're going to have to attach these special mounts to the vehicle so that we can still have the vehicle in the air and be able to remove the battery. And to do so, we're going to have to, it's easier to show it this way, is we're going to have to remove this panel from the back of the vehicle, which has a few screws here. And if you see, if I start to grab the panel on the bottom here, that it's held on by clips from here all the way to here. You're going to want to take this panel off, and you're going to want to do so on the other side of the vehicle, on the left and right side, so that you can attach those mounts to lift the vehicle. After moving the 4 T25 screws there, you're going to want to pull the panel down like I was saying. And I found after pulling the panel down that you can turn around and work your tool behind the clips without bending the panel too much, because you don't want to deform the panel. You're going to want to do that all the way down. When you're done removing the panel, this is what it'll look like, and these will be the 3 little panels on each side that you have to remove. The one that goes from the front to the back, and then these 2 covers here. We're going to remove this cover here. Make sure to cover these tabs. You're going to want to pull it this way for the vehicle because you don't want to break these tabs. And the same with this one. On the bottom of the vehicle, you're going to want to pull down and pull away from the vehicle. Now that the covers are off here, I have these special lift arms that go into the frame of the vehicle and snap in so that I actually have a lift mark. Because usually you lift up on the battery when you're lifting the vehicle, but to remove the battery you have to have these special arms here because you don't want to break any of this plastic or anything else on the vehicle. And on the front, I'll show you there. And as you see in the front here, you have coolant lines and everything else that run down the side of the rails of the vehicle. And without having this special arm here that snaps in here, like so, you would turn around, and if you were to lift it, you could possibly break these coolant lines and these electrical lines that come through, hydraulic air lines, and a whole bunch of other things. So I would almost say that to remove the battery you have to have these special lift arms. There's ways around it, I'm sure, but to be safe and to protect everything else where you're not going to break anything, I would definitely invest in these special arms to remove the battery. Now a view of the lift from underneath so you can see that the lift arm would have crushed all that. I'm sure you could have used some 4x4s or something, or 2x4s to get in there, but still the possibility of crushing these air lines and these coolant lines, and also this electrical cord all the way through this wiring harness, would have been very risky. And these arms fit so perfectly, so what happens is when the battery comes down, it has space to go between the arm and the lift. And in the rear also here, the lift arm gives enough space so when the battery drops that it's not going to hit the lift arm there. Okay, let's pull some more stuff apart. I want you to come over to the center console now, and this panel here, I want you to pull it up and pull it down here, and I want you to do the same thing on the other side. Now I want you to come over and pull the carpet back, and on each side right here there's going to be one 8mm bolt on this side, and then on the other side there's going to be the same thing, an 8mm bolt. Remove them. On each side of the center console there's a T25 right here, and then one on the other side. I want you to turn around and remove them. The driver's side here, there's a connector. I want you to remove that there. Like so. Next, I want you to open the center console here, and I want you to turn around, and in the bottom here there's a rubber mat. I want you to remove that rubber mat. When you take the cover off, there's going to be one, and then on the other side there's going to be another one, 8mm. Remove them. Now that all the bolts are removed, you can turn around and remove the center console. I recommend going to remove it this way into the rear of the vehicle. Make sure you're careful because you don't want to scratch anything. And this is what it's going to look like with the center console removed. Next, we're going to remove the seats here, and we're also going to disconnect the seat belt. You're going to want to start by turning around and taking these covers off here. Usually stick them in the door panel here. Now that the cover's off, I want you to turn around and take this 13mm bolt holding the seat belt. Put the seat belt to the side. Now I want you to come to the rear of the vehicle, and I want you to take the 11mm bolts out of the rear. And now I want you to move the seat to the rear position all the way to expose these 11mm bolts. I want you to turn around and remove those also. As you see, the seat is ready to be removed almost. We have to remove the airbag plugs and the cable underneath, and I'll show you how to do that. Underneath the seat here, here's the main cable harness. You're going to want to turn around and work the plug out like so. I recommend these plastics here, from my experience. Make sure you guard them before pulling the seats up, because you'll scratch them pretty good. So I actually sometimes remove them, but I grab two guys, me and another guy, to make sure that we don't scratch them. Be careful, don't scratch them up. Now that the seats are removed in the vehicle, I want you to come over to the hood release, and inside here there's a T20. I want you to remove that T20. Next here, we're going to come over to the accelerator pedal, and you're going to have one tab here and one tab here. I want you to remove. I want you to remove 1, 2 T25 screws. After removing the screws to the accelerator pedal, I want you to pull it up, and on this side there's a plug. I want you to disconnect this plug right here. Next, I want to pull these side panels off on each side of the vehicle, one on the left and one on the right. After removing the panel, I want you to turn around and come in here, and I want you to remove this side trim and that side trim. I also want you to turn around and take the handle out for the hood release and pull this panel out here, and I want you to do the same thing on that side. Next, we're going to remove this vent and this vent here. Next, remove the front carpets and the rear carpets for the vehicle. Make sure to watch out for the wires for the airbags and also the brake pedal. Now with the carpets removed in the vehicle, we're going to move on to the next step. Next, we're going to drain the coolant system and release the pressure in the coolant system here. I want you to come over to this side of the vehicle, and under here is the coolant system. I want you to remove this cap so that when you drain the coolant system, air can get through the coolant system. Now that pressure is released in the coolant system, we're going to remove the 12-volt battery and disconnect the high voltage system. This is how you safely disconnect the high voltage system on a Polestar 3. Always remember, high voltage systems should only be handled by trained professionals. Let's start off by disconnecting the 12-volt battery on the negative side. I now want you to come to the rear of the vehicle, to the driver's rear seat, and underneath this flap right here, there's a T-cam battery. I want you to disconnect at this clip and then pull the battery out. I want you to come to the trunk of the vehicle and open up this fuse box, and I want you to take fuse 9 out, like so, and put it in a tray here. On the left-hand side of the vehicle here is the high voltage disconnect. Let's disconnect the high voltage system. I'm going to follow this tag to the green plug here, and you're going to want to wiggle it up. Once it's wiggled up, I want you to put a pick in this red tab and pull out. And I want you to pull and push down and pull out like this. Now the high voltage system is disconnected and the vehicle is safe to work on. And I want you to come over to the HVCH, and I want you to remove this bolt. Disconnect this plug right here. I now want you to remove this 8mm bolt and this 8mm bolt. With this loose, I want you to pick it up and pull it out and pull it to the side. I now want you to come over here and pull this clip, pull this little panel back, and underneath this panel I want you to remove this 13mm nut, and I want you to follow the line, and I want you to remove this clip and this clip here. Next, I want you to come over to the high voltage plug. I want you to pull back on this purple tab, and I want you to pull the lever and pull the high voltage plug. Pull to the side. With the connector loose, I want you to turn around and take this 8mm bolt out. I now want you to come to the rear of the vehicle and remove the rear seat, and I also want you to turn around and take the 17 7mm bolts out of this black cover. After removing the bolts here, I want you to turn around and take the cover off and remove the cover, which will expose the battery disconnect unit or the BDU. Next, I want you to come over here and I want you to remove this 8mm bolt, and then we're going to remove this connector here. Now that the bolt's removed for the high voltage cable, I want you to pull this clip back or take it off. I like to remove it. Some people, you just got to be really careful to remove it. It's a lot easier to pull the plug off after removing it. To pull up on the lever and to pull all the way up on the connector to remove the cable like so. And now I want you to come to the rear of the vehicle, and we're going to do two things. we're going to remove this cover for the fuse box. We're going to take fuse 9 out, and then we're going to go and take these two 13mm nuts out. With the two 13mm nuts off, I now want you to remove the cables and put them to the side. Next, I want you to come to the back seat on the passenger side, and I want you to turn around and pull this clip here out, pull the cables here up, and behind the seat you should have already disconnected the cables, so they should just pull out here, and I want you to lay them down on top of the BDU here, or on top of the battery. Next, we're going to remove this harness here from this clip, and we're going to pull back on this safety clip here and remove this connector from the harness and lay it to its side. Next, we're going to remove this 13mm nut, and we're going to turn around and take this cable and lay it to the side. When you're done, I want you to take the cables, I want you to wrap them around like this, because when the battery drops, all the cables and everything are going to come down, and I pull this cable up and stretch it over a little bit this way to be out of the way here. I now want you to come over to the passenger footwell of the vehicle, and I want you to remove this cover. There's a tab here and there's a tab here. I want you to pull up there and pull up here and work this out and pull it up. Under this cover here, there's one 10mm bolt. Remove it. On the driver's side of the vehicle here, there's going to be 1, 2, 3 bolts, 10mm. I want you to remove these 3 10mm bolts. On both sides of the vehicle, we have a 13mm here and a 13mm there. I want you to remove them. In the rear of the vehicle here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts, all 10mm. I want you to remove. I next want you to remove both rear wheels and also both rear fender liners. I next want you to come over to the driver's side, to turn around and take this 8mm bolt out, this 8mm bolt out, this 8mm bolt out. I also want you to take the clips off this plastic housing and remove it, so that you can have the wires come from here to here, and you can unhook from the battery pack here. And now I want you to come over to the plug and remove the clip, and then also pull back and remove the high voltage cable for the EVI port into the battery. And now I want you to come to the rear of the vehicle, and I want you to remove these bolts out of this cover here. They're all 7mm. And then I also want you to turn around and take this cover here down. On each side of the rear, you have these brackets with 3 17 and 1 13mm bolt, and the same thing on this side, 1 13mm bolt and 3 17s. I want you to remove these bolts and bracket. Next, I want you to take 1, 2, 3 screws out of the front fender liner so that you can take this clip out right here. And then I also want you to turn around and take this panel down, and also the same here, these 3 screws out, and do the same here. Under the covers that you just removed, you're gonna have 1 bracket here and 1 bracket here. And the bolts that need to be removed is a 13, a 15, and an 18. I want you to remove 1 bracket at a time and then reinstall the 18mm bolt afterwards on each side. This is what it should look like afterwards. You're gonna have the brackets hanging. You're gonna wanna remove that 8mm bolt, and then you're gonna wanna turn around and put that 18mm bolt back into the subframe. And then the same thing on this side. You're gonna wanna remove this 8mm bolt and put the 18mm bolt back into the subframe to support the vehicle. The vehicle's battery is almost ready to come down now. We're gonna start removing some of the bolts here. And I want you to start by removing this 13mm, this 13mm bolt, and then I want you to come to the front of the vehicle, and I want you to remove this 13mm, this 13mm, and then there's going to be 6 15mm bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want you to remove these bolts, and then we'll go to the next step, and we're gonna take this table here and we're gonna put it underneath the battery, and we're gonna remove more bolts. Now that the battery table is underneath the vehicle and in position underneath the battery, we're going to turn around and take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15mm bolts out. Go out with the battery. And on this side, keep coming down. Yep, the battery's free. I'll let you know. It's coming down, we're good, it's even. Okay, nothing's touching. Yeah, I was watching it come down.
Okay. Going down more? Let me know.
Keep going down. Just so we can get these plugs and everything off here. Keep coming down. They really give you inches here, don't they, Louis?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
There's only couple inches to before we can drop it.
Come down 2 more inches.
2 more?
Yep.
Going down.
A little more. Right there. I now want you to remove the plug, and I just put a glove around it, and I tape the glove around it, and then I cap the high voltage battery. I then come over here and use a special plug to cap off the high voltage system, and then also here another high voltage cap for safety. I now want you to release this clip here so that the coolant will escape, and I want you to drain it down into a coolant drain. I want you to let the coolant drain until it's completely stopped. Now that the coolant's come to a drip, I want you to turn around and pull this clip here on this coolant hose, and I want you to pull there also. I now want you to remove this clip here and let the remaining coolant drip down. Now that the coolant's finished draining, I still come over and I use a blowgun and I turn around and I blow the area down because coolant is conductive. With the coolant drained in the vehicle, I now want you to come over here and I want you to remove 1, 2, 3 T25 screws. I now want you to take the cover here and move it to the side and I want you to take this 13 millimeter nut off and remove the 12 volt cables. I now want you to take all the cables and I want you to move them to the side over here. There's going to be a zip tie that's going to need to be removed here, and this is what it should look like before removing the battery. The battery now has been dropped to a safe level where I can work on it. I wanted to show you a few things over here. When you go back to install the battery, I want you to be very careful because there's so much plastic here. And even these plastic connectors here. Because you have inches between here and here when you go to back reinstall it. So I'm going to recommend that you be very safe with these plastic coolant outlets, and then also just these plastic clips and everything here. Be very careful when you pull it back up, go inch by inch. But I recommend definitely to have a safety plug because the coolant when you have to drain. And also we're going to start by removing this cover here and getting under to check the DC contactors out. We're now going to dismantle the battery pack, or at least the top of the battery pack, and I'm going to show you how to do that. From the front of the battery pack, I'm going to want you to remove this 7 millimeter bolt. On the top of this unit here, I want you to remove this 10 millimeter nut and this 10 millimeter nut. And now I want you to remove the vent and put it to the side. And now I want you to disconnect the harness here and pull the clip up. And then I also want you to turn around and start pulling the harness up with this clip puller here. It's pretty good actually. And I want you to come over here and I want you to remove this zip tie. We're going to remove this solenoid, and we're going to turn around and remove this 10 millimeter, this 10 millimeter, and this 10 millimeter nut here. And now I want you to turn around and remove the clip and remove the unit. I now want you to remove this 7 millimeter bolt and this 7 millimeter bolt. With the cable harness to the side here, we're going to turn around and come to the vehicle and remove all 8 of these clips here. You're going to want to work it up like so. And I want you to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 all the way down. Now that the wiring harness is up, and pretty much we have this 13 millimeter nut that needs to be removed, and then this plug needs to be removed. And when you do so, I want you to take the harness up and I want you to move it to the side. I now want you to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 8 millimeter nuts. And now I want you to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 millimeter bolts here. And then I also want you to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 7 millimeter bolts here. We now have these aluminum brackets I want you to remove, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 10mm bolts. And then I also want you to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 10mm bolts. In the front of the pack here, I want you to remove 1, 2 10mm bolts. On the back of the pack here, I want you to remove this 10mm bolt. We have 21 T25 bolts I want you to remove. And when you remove those bolts, you're going to have this cover that has to be removed. I want you to make sure at this point you start to wear high voltage gloves, because anything underneath this cover is high voltage, and be safe. Now that the T25 bolts are removed, I want you to remove the cover to expose the high voltage system. You now have 72 EP8 Torx Plus bolts that need to be removed around the pack, and they're all on the outside of the shell of the battery pack here. To remove the cover, you have to remove all 72 of these bolts. You're going to start to pry up the lid, and when you do, you're going to want to use a razor knife to cut around this butyl tape here.
Where are we going?
Go side, and then go down. Now that we have the battery pack lid off, the smell is absolutely horrible, and I'll be able to confirm my diagnosis here. My diagnosis on the battery pack was that the DC contactor had failed, and I was able to confirm that. As you see, the DC contactor completely melted the bus bar here, which is pretty crazy looking. So I'll need to replace both DC contactors, negative and positive. I have to replace the bus bar here, the nuts and bolts, the temperature sensor, and then possibly when I take more apart, I might need to replace more. In the next step here, I want you to remove this bus bar. It's 2 T27 bolts, and then of course you're going to need your high voltage equipment on to pull this bus bar out, and then the battery will be serviceable. I've been working on high voltage batteries for 15 years, and I've never seen a bus bar melt through like this, to the point where I had to ask a second opinion. And what engineering told me to do is replace the entire battery pack due to thermal damage. And I agree with that situation. Sometimes you can't repair a high voltage battery, and this is a perfect example why. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And until the next time, thank you for watching Fully Charged Zone.